In today's competitive market, attracting investors to your company is crucial for growth and success. A strong investor base not only provides the necessary capital, but also validates your company's value and potential. However, standing out in a sea of companies vying for investor attention can be daunting. This evening on our entrepreneurial feature, we talk about the art of scaling a business, discussing critical factors that make companies attractive to funders and stakeholders. Joining us for this discussion is Andisa Ramavhunga, who is Group Chief Advisor at Ntiyiso Consulting, and he joins me in studio. Andisa, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Aubrey. It's always great to be here.
Scaling is really the anchor conversation that we're going to be having this evening. What does scaling mean? It sounds like a really MBA thing.
Yeah, so today we run a risk of losing people again. But it's one of those topics that we would be doing a disservice if we don't at least address with entrepreneurs, because this, I believe, and I do firmly believe this, that this is the engine of the business. This is what, when you say you are building a business, this is what allows you to do believe that you have a business. There are things that when we look at a business stand out. Things like revenue growth, profitability, because they stand out. They are written in financial statements, in numbers. They're attractive to people, clients. You can touch them. Locations, factories, and all those things are a very good part of business that are visible. But what makes a business stand out, or what makes a business sustainable, is those hidden parts of the business, the parts that you and I would not normally see. Yeah. And that's what we talk about when we talk scaling. It's really the foundation of business. And I think just maybe to do justice to the topic, one, I will attempt in a layman's way to maybe create a case for it so that this becomes quite clear to people. And not only do that, but also define it and get into the science part of it. And this is where now you will need to bear with me, because we'll get into some jargon, but we'll try to keep it as layman as possible. Look,
let's just address the issue of the language and the jargon issue very quickly, because I think it can be a contentious issue, and I don't think it needs to be. Some people have raised it in the past in our conversations, but I want to argue that this is part of the teaching and the learning process that we're going through, to understand some of these terms, because those are the terms that are spoken in that space. What we will be doing is that we will speak of those terms, but also give meaning to them.
Absolutely.
By breaking them down in a way that is going to be a little more relatable.
That resonates with the people.
Absolutely. Yes. So my issue is that while we are trying to demystify and perhaps simplify, we are not in the business of dumbing things down.
Yeah.
We are in the business of educating and helping people understand what is the language spoken there in ways that are relatable. So I don't want you to constantly be worried that, we'll ask the question, what does that mean? And I want to invite our listeners also to be part of that curiosity. What does that mean? If a particular message or a particular term or a particular thing has been broached in our discussion, and you as a listener feel as though you don't understand, this is the time to call in and say, just please explain to me, what does that mean? Instead of saying, but just ask the question, what does that mean? And in that way, all of us are edified and educated. Yeah.
So on the contrary, Obli, I think I was just laying a content for us.
Absolutely. Sure.
Because what we are, and you are absolutely right, we are trying to create meaning.
Yep.
But the challenge that probably we have is because we are so immersed in that world that there are certain things we take for granted.
Yeah, sure.
But if we do a good job, you and I, we'll be able to transcend those terms and be able to create that meaning. So it was against that backdrop to say that we'll obviously keep each other honest, and people will ask, and there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
For me, in my world, it doesn't exist, because a stupid question to one person is a eureka moment for the next, and other people are scared to ask them, and it's only those who are bold enough who then push the boundaries of learning.
100%.
Yeah, but finally, if we do a good job today as well, is maybe provide an approach to how an entrepreneur would undertake the process of systematization or scaling a business.
We want to take one break, and then we go into that. But please, I want to invite those of you listening to this conversation as we talk about scaling a business. Whatever question you might have, and this is critical, whatever question you might have is not stupid. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Call in 011-883-0702.
Entrepreneurship
on 702.
Scaling of a business is the conversation I'm having with Andisa Ramavhunga, Group Chief Advisor at Ntiyiso Consulting Group. You talked about it as both an art and a science. I'm interested in that.
So it's a science in a sense that there's best practice, and best practice basically is knowledge over a period of time done by many people, and they distill it to what they call it best practice. It's the most easiest way for us to do things without creating the same mistakes because other people have done it before. So I say it's the science because there is a systematic approach to doing this.
Right.
Because loads of businesses have been done before. If you think about franchising, those are the best examples of scaling. If you think about McDonald's, for example, or Starbucks, Chicken Licken.
Yeah.
I don't know how many stores now Chicken Licken has across the country and how many people it employs. But people would agree with me that you fairly know what you're going to get out of Chicken Licken.
Yeah.
They hardly ever run out of stock.
Yeah.
And more often than not, and sure, maybe they'll overspice their wings
sometimes the salt is
too much.
Yeah.
But generally the quality of it is the same, and no matter where you are in the country, the brand experience is the same.
Yeah.
The people that you meet, I mean, if you look at the stores inside, if you look at the quantities that it's the same. So I guess that's what we're talking about today, is to say, how do you build your business in such a way that you mimic a Chicken Licken, and maybe this is an opportune time to create that case for it. My question would be, if you're an entrepreneur today and you were to win a 2-week cruise to go on a holiday, all expenses paid, will your business be able to survive without you or not? That's the critical question. And you'll know whether you've scaled or not. If it can't and you shut down, you're probably more self-employed. And we've had this debate. What is the difference between self-employment, a businessman? I won't belabor on that. But the moment you can't run the business without you being there, there's an issue. Or sometimes you are running your business, but not in the most efficient, optimal ways. And what do I mean by that? If you're forever running out of stock, I don't know whether you've been, my favorite cuisine is iskopo. And there's this place that I always buy. I think I always Nyama Yentrogo. And by the way, I need to shout to other people who are here in Hyde Park as well. I also love the giant rib, by the way. But they have, and this is a franchise,
right,
which is a similar problem to the Skopo place that I go to. But then you see Ayiko.
Yeah.
You get there. More often the Skopo is not there.
Yeah.
So you must know that you've got scaling issues.
Yeah.
If you go to a shop, for example, and you buy your favorite dish or you buy your favorite clothing and the quality is not up to scratch compared to before, you know that you've got quality issues. That's a scaling a problem. When you start getting into cash flow issues, for example, because you can't deliver sufficient product to enough people, although the demand of that product is there, those are scaling issues. So yeah, I guess that's the premise of it all, is to say, how do you build a business that outlives you? How do you build a business that you can take time away from, even if it's a 2-year sabbatical, and it will run? And sometimes you don't want to take that time away, but you want to focus more on the strategic part while the operational part runs, because part of the business as well is growth. I mean, I think we spoke about this when we spoke about the spiritual side of the business in one of our very early on conversations around you growing with the business. I mean, if you are starting a shop Magwinya today, and I like this because it's a very simple analogy that works with quite a lot of businesses and resonate with a lot of people. You cannot be a baker forever. At some point in time, maybe you want to be a global player who thinks about location, who manages stakeholders, who thinks about CSI and making impact onto the community. But guess what? The bakery still needs to run. And you then decouple yourself and focus more on the strategic parts of brand building, becoming a stakeholder manager within your community, but still running a business. So at the heart of scaling is sustainability. In fact, I would argue that unless you scale your business, it will never be sustainable. But there's a caveat in that. It's not all businesses that are sustainable. Sometimes people have lifestyle businesses, and it's fine that they live from opportunity to opportunity so that they can fund a business. They are lifestyle or social entrepreneurs. So it's not for everyone. But if you've got a big dream, if you want to employ as many people as we've spoken about, then scaling becomes one of the sacrosanct thing that you need to do in the business.
Take a call from Masakane in Kempton Park. Good evening to you, Masakane.
Hey, how are you? How are you, Tumago?
Very, very good, Masakane. Siyathokoza mfundvukile.
Sithokozile nina ke?
Awangithi laba. What is on your mind, Masakane?
Yeah, so chise nomuntu omthekela okhamba naso lapho.
He's greeting
Yeah.
you. His kid.
Yeah, my question is about, I want to know about incubation and mentoring.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we draft a business plan, these people, of government, FIDA and this one, and what they tell you, no, your business is not viable, you must bring it to us and draft for you. That is my question.
But what is your question? At which point does your business require incubation, or a mentor? Is that the question?
Yes, mentor and incubation.
I hear you. Masakane sithokoza khulu kwamambala baba.
So was it tomorrow?
I see. When do you require mentorship and incubation, and is that part of the scaling process?
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, in a sense that we have to start somewhere. Because we have to be a startup, and I keep on referring to that life cycle of a business that we always have, because it's pertinent to everything. It's pertinent to funding, incubation, and all these other terms that get thrown away slightly. So he's talking mostly about a startup. I mean, think about an incubator in a hospital.
Yeah.
An incubator is for newly born babies, right?
Or an underdeveloped infant, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
But they're typically underdeveloped because obviously at what stage of their life they are in.
Usually for premature babies and so
yeah,
forth.
no, absolutely.
So there's maybe certain lungs that are not properly developed. I'm saying this to remind myself of the analogy of the baby in the incubator.
Yeah.
It could be a business that has certain aspects that are not yet properly, fully developed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
So at startup, it's not always necessary to be in an incubator, but obviously it helps quite a lot because it mobilizes the whole entrepreneurship ecosystem, because you get mentors there, you get educators, you get certain services that you typically would not have, like accounting, finance services. You get consulting services if you're lucky. I would typically separate it from the mentorship. I would say the mentorship, you need it throughout your business. Obviously, you get different mentors depending on the stage of your business. So it helps to have mentors very early on. But I would even urge entrepreneurs to say, keep on looking for mentors throughout, even when the business has become very, very successful. And you'll see that people put on what we call board of directors, because those are typically mentors to support the over and above what they do for governance. But they are typically would be subject matter experts that will help the CEO drive the strategy of the business.
I want to stay first of all with the functional definition of scaling.
Yeah.
Right? So it sounds to me it is the mindset. Sounds like to me it's the mindset plus some of the functional and operational practical things that need to go into safely growing your business.
Yeah. So I think let's separate, because there is that definitive distinction between growth and scaling.
Okay.
Growth could be revenue growth. It could be profitability growth. When you are opening growth, you can see it. As I've mentioned, those are the things that you you probably see in the business because they are represented in one way or the other. Scaling are those things that you don't see in the business. And they are typically made up of what I call, or if you were to think of them, your business is a collection of systems, whether it's a financial management system or it's a production system or it's a management or people management system. So scaling talks to those systems that are relevant to your business at that stage that you are in. And I'll come back and define to say what a system is, if you allow me. Or maybe let me pause there to say at the moment, and let me tell you why this is critical. And I'll refer, if you don't systematize your business, right? You can bring in, and this is growth. You can have as many people in the organization as possible. But at some point, you need to think about consistency of delivery. This is analogy that Ntiyiso ayikho. So whenever you are selling stuff, we are able to find it there. So which is I call effectiveness. So the ability to deliver
a consistent customer experience.
Right? Because think about why people run away from businesses. You can't come every day. This thing is not there.
Yeah.
Have you ever not been frustrated to come to the menu
absolutely.
every time? And it's worse when you are like me. And when that cuisine or that food is your favorite food. But it's always not there. This is how you lose customers, by the way, because I'm sure by the 7th time the guy comes there, the thing is not there. They change. If you're lucky, they change to other things, but they'll find a similar product somewhere else where there's more reliability.
Right.
Right. So at some point, you need to think about consistency. You need to think about quality. Right. So scaling, it's about creating the necessary capacity and capabilities within the business to sustain that growth. Because if you don't do that, as I've said, you can have as many people as possible. And one of the analogies that I like coming out of Harvard, they say that people make about between 33,000 and 35,000 decisions a day, right? And those decisions differ or based on your background, where you come from, what's your view of good or bad, what are you socialized to. So you can imagine having 1,000 of us all making 35,000 decisions a day, and we all come from different backgrounds. This is where you start now undermining the consistency and the ability of doing things. So scaling is more about capacity and capability, and it's very distinct from growth, because you can actually achieve growth without scaling, but there's a danger in that business won't be sustainable.
Let's talk to Tsepo in Pretoria. Hi, Tsepo.
Bra Tsepo. Yeah, but brother, for me, the biggest gap that needs to be closed, and I know many people are want to say SEDA is there to close the gap, but SEDA is useless. It's the development of business plans. You know, if you ask any black man who wants to go into business, you ask them what they want to do, they will give you a clear-cut opportunity. And if they had a business plan, they would obviously take this document, present it into Empowerment Fund or any other funding institutions. But the challenge is this business plan. You know, to put together a business plan is not a child's play.
Sure.
You got to be very educated, understand the economics, understand the accounting, understand all of these things. And these things, people go to university to learn these things. Now, as an entrepreneur, you are expected to understand how to put together a formidable business plan. And that's really where the state is failing black business people. Because I can tell you now, a lot of companies, a lot of small businesses will not grow to the likes of Ntiyiso or to the likes of Vodacom or all of these big conglomerates, simply because they will lack the capabilities to put together business plan so they can get investment into a business. And once they do that, then the business will remain stagnant. So I'm thinking government needs to either empower SEDA, because SEDA is supposed to put together this business plan, or the likes of my brother there, they need to have, as the business community, they need to have an institution that's really powerful, that has got skills, that can assist black business. To say, if I want to grow now, I want to expand my business, where do I go to get the plan? And so I can go to just pick ones and get the funds. And really, that's really the biggest gap why we are stuck. We're not moving.
In fact, Tsepo, you speak of Tsepo's gone, but I mean that's what the conversation has been about for the last three or four 5 episodes, right, that we've been having. How do we bridge the gap that Tsep was talking about?
Yeah.
How do we capacitate entrepreneurs who are good at a particular aspect of that business? So, for example, the person who starts a makwinya person who can make brilliant amakwinya, but hasn't got the capacity, the exposure, or maybe the education to understand how to do all of the other strategic stuff that are about scaling, which is why we're having that conversation now.
Absolutely.
Talk to Tsepo.
Yeah, so no, I hear Tsepo, and I don't want to maybe repeat some of the.
Yeah.
And I do agree with him. If you remember, I ventured an opinion there around these DFIs and lenders to segment their market and be able to provide the right value proposition or the right support to the right customer base, because not all people have the same privilege in terms of education, in terms of exposure, in terms of even the necessary infrastructure. I mean, some of us take for granted that we can go to town and be able to drop a tender, for example, or we can go to an office and deliver through email a proposal of some sort. Other people don't have that a privilege, and therefore I think there is a business case to be made in terms of segmenting the entrepreneurship population and being able to provide the right kind of support. In fact, that's instead of calling the value proposition, it's to say we are going to give you funding, but maybe your hurdle to access that funding is much, much higher than the next guy, and maybe this is where we need to be channeling the limited funds that everyone has. But you're right, to come back to the question of scaling, one of the things, if you remember, that I think came very strong from the funders is that although funders will and in fact this is what Tsepo is saying, it's in essence it's a business plan, because remember, a business plan is saying that you have an end objective of what we are trying to achieve, this value creation thing that we spoke about. A business plan is a roadmap of how you're going to do that, and a big function of that is scaling. And I'll be practical with you. You remember when the funders came here, they said it's fine for us to look at the the financial statements and all that, but for you to tell a believable story, we need to see how reliable or consistent your machinery is in producing those financial set of results that you wanted to do. So, for example, how is sales done in that organization? And are we sure that 100,000 you say is going to happen at the end of the year is going to be able to be achieved year on year? And for you to do that, you need to talk about this sales system I talk about in terms of the organizational, the scaling ecosystem. The next thing is, okay, you can sell the stuff, but can you take the raw material, process it and convert it to goods that you can deliver to clients? Do you have the capacity and the capability and the know-how to do that? And those are issues of scaling. Once you are able to produce the goods, can you deliver them to clients? So again, you need to tell not only the sets of financial models that says, look, I've seen the opportunity. I think I can get so much of the market. I've priced my good. I think I can sell it at this point, and these are my margins. You can do that in a spreadsheet, but very importantly, you need to think about, and by the way, if you remember when you spoke strategy, it's not good enough that you understand your market segments and you understand your products and you're thinking pricing, you're thinking channels, but you also you need to think the feasibility element. And this is where the scaling is very important, is to then say, do you have a believable story around how you're going to sell? I mean, what does your customer funnel look like to convert sales? How many leads are you going to generate on a weekly basis? How are those leads managed throughout the funnel, the sales funnel, so that they become contracts or people who pay? Once people pay, they need goods and after service. Have you planned that? Do you understand the capacity? If you are going to sell amagwinya 100 a day, do you have the stoves and ovens to be able to pay amagwinya 100? Can you get enough stock with your cash flow to be able to at least get the raw material? Can you put them somewhere? How do you manage the inventories? How do you manage stock ins and stock outs? How do you manage the sales process and the after sales process? So those are the systems that I talk about, and we'll talk about the process, because if you think about a business as a car is made up of a number of systems. Yeah. One of them is the engine system. One of them is the chassis and the wheel system. One of them is maybe the dashboard and the interior system. One of them is the entertainment system in the car. You can think about them as components of a system. And this is how you need to think about the business to then give rise to that scaling.
I want to stay with that analogy of the car and the various systems that must work in tandem together in order for this car to operate.
Yeah.
But those systems aren't necessarily the driver of the car. Okay, so I want to stay with that analogy to be able to ask the question that I want to ask, related to the question or the issues that Tsepo raises around capacity to be able to tell my story to funders, to be able to unlock and give me access to more funding.
Yeah.
It appears, based on your definition of scaling, that in fact, learning the language is part of the scaling.
Yeah.
So learning the complexities of the putting together of a business plan, not as an expert, but understanding the framework in general terms, so that you can assist the expert with understanding your story, your believable story. That is part of the scaling process.
Yes.
In other words, the capacitating of the founder with the knowledge to be able to tell the story about his business to a funder is the scaling process.
Absolutely.
Because I'm worried that our conversation may be such that it's understood to exclude that part.
Yeah.
Mamsheng makes beautiful amakwinya. She is brilliant. She makes the most, it's amakwinya that give you a spiritual experience, right?
Yeah.
But her business is making amakwinya get to as many people as possible for a return.
Yeah.
That's the business.
That's the business, yes.
See, because I'm trying to really clear in my mind that her business is not her ability to make amakwinya. That's not the business. The business is to get amakwinya that she is able to make, because we've already established that. That's why we know that she makes wonderful amakwinya. The business is getting amakwinya to as many people as possible, as consistently as possible.
Yeah.
Is the business.
Is the business. Let me complicate your example even further. If Mam Kize was to fall sick today, can she just simply take a person from the street and put them there to produce that magical experience?
She can't.
She can't.
So she's got to be thinking about, how do I make sure that the experience that my customers have come to be accustomed to, when eating Mamshengu's amakwinya, is consistent whether I am there or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Man, Ramavhunga, man, we must take this thing on the road, man. No, I'm getting it now.
Yeah.
Because I think what happens to us, especially those of us who are in startups or smaller nyana businesses or whatever the case may be, we judge our ability to unlock funding, which is one aspect, one aspect, on whether or not I am good at what I do.
Yeah.
That's no longer the question. We know that you are good.
Yeah.
We know that you can make a makwinya that'll want to make us marry you. We know that.
Yeah.
Now the challenge is to make a business out of that ability.
Yeah.
That process of making a business out of that ability, depending on which phase, of course, of the business is scaling.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So at some point, Mam Kize needs to think about the recipe and document it.
Yes.
To say, amakwinya this is how they are made. There's the recipe part, right? Which is like the ingredients, what goes into it. There's also the baking part. How long must you bake this amakwinya? Where do I source the material for amakwinya? Do I buy Sasko flour, or is what's this other brand of flour?
Flour flake
or flour flake. Is it the better flour or is Sasko the better? Which oil to use? Which one is better to create that magical experience that I'm talking about? How long must amakwinya stay before they move out, right? How are they moving out from where I'm baking them to reach those many people? So Mam Kize needs to start documenting all those things so that they are able to enroll as many people to be able to create herself in them as possible. And the only way you can do that is by systematizing your business.
Audacity to Win says, Andisa is remarkably remarkable. Let's take a break. When we come back, I want to take more of your calls. Yeah, Buffett, do you see that thing that we get caught up in our ability to make something? And we are not thinking about making that ability to make something a business.